And here our next important topic is degrees of freedom of a mechanism. So this is also called as a mobility of the mechanism. In the name itself we have mobility means possible motion. So for example, if you consider any mechanism or any planar or a spatial mechanism, for a given input for a given input motion, how many output motions can be possible? How many output motions can be possible for a given input? This input may be one or two motions. It depends on our requirement or the mechanism or type of the mechanism. So if you know output mechanism, output possible motions, then we can choose that particular mechanism over the appropriate application. So how to find out this? And otherwise, if I consider in the other way, like I want to choose a particular mechanism for the particular application. So how to choose that mechanism? So that is either through the trial and error method. So we construct a mechanism, and we'll see whether that is satisfying our required application or not. But that is very cumbersome, and every time we cannot go for that. It takes a lot of time also. But instead, if you have a ready-made formula to calculate any degree of freedom of any mechanism, then it's easy to choose that particular mechanism for the required application. Or same point I would like to explain with an example. For example, we have this slider crank mechanism. So this is the slider crank mechanism, and this can be this will be used in our internal combustion engine. And we know that in an internal combustion engine, this motion, translation motion, should be given to the crank as a rotational movement. So that means if you here, due to fuel burning, this piston will be moved in this direction, so that this will be this output. For example, we are considering this as a input motion, and this rotation is the output motion. And we need to know whether this particular mechanism is only of 1 degree of freedom. So that we know it's only 1 degree of freedom because we have already seen this one. But how to know that one before using in the mission or in the engine? So we need to apply these degrees of freedom of formula for this one, and if it is satisfying that output motion is only having only 1 degree of freedom, then only we go for this type of mechanism. And that is about degrees of freedom. But what is the nature of DOF? But in the same example, we know that for a given input motion, this output is only one motion, that is a rotational motion at the crankshaft. But I said only rotational motion only by experience. But if you start newly this mechanism, if you are dealing, if you are a new fellow and you don't know about anything about this mechanism, and you want to confirm whether it's a output, whether the output motion is a translational or rotational. So this nature of the degree of freedom gives the um, or it distinguishes the degree of freedom is either translational or rotational. So here in this present chapter, most of the mechanisms that we consider are in the plane or planar. So here in the planar, we can easily identify the nature of degree of freedom. But if we consider the same mechanisms in space, then it's very difficult to find out the nature of degree of freedom by using this simple formula that we are going to derive in this session. So in that case, generally people go for screw theory analysis, and they formulate some inverse and direct kinematics, and from that one they segregate some matrices and then find out the eigenvalues, and based on the eigenvalues they will get to know about the degrees of freedom, number of degrees of freedom, and as well as nature of the degrees of freedom. Nature means whether the degree of freedom is a translational motion or a rotational motion. So here, but we don't go in the detail here in this chapter, because our main focus here only on the planar mechanisms. So that's why we need to know degrees of freedom for any mechanism, so that we can use that particular mechanism in a appropriate application. So uh, let's find out a formula for the degrees of freedom. And see, in this particular example, we need to find out degrees of freedom of this mechanism, but this mechanism again consists of different links. This is the slider, this is the simple simple rod, or we can call it as a link, and this is one more link, and this ground also one more link. Here we have a pin joint, here also pin joint. Pin joint means hinge joint. Hinge joint allows only rotational movement between two links, and here also one hinge joint, and this link is again connected to the slider with a hinge joint. So here, if you can find out these degrees of freedom of the individual links, and if you can formulate the relation between these different degrees of freedom of these different links when these are connected by a hinge joints or some other joints, then that will automatically gives the degrees of freedom of the entire mechanism. So what I am trying to say is, instead of directly considering this whole mechanism, I would like to start degrees of freedom of the simple link initially in this space, and then we will move on to the planar or plane. Then finally we try to find out the ultimate formula for the degrees of freedom, and then we would like to apply the same formula for the different mechanisms. And before deriving that particular equation, here I would like to first write the degree of freedom. That's a group. According to Grubler's criteria, degrees of freedom is given as 3 into n minus 1 minus 2 into p1 minus p2. This is in a plane. This is for planar mechanisms. And when I say mechanisms, that means one of the links is fixed one. Here n refers to the n equal to number of links in a mechanism. N is the number of links in a mechanism, and what is the p1 and what is the p2. So we will define that one, and don't remember, or no need to buy. We would derive this particular equation by considering set of examples. First, I will consider a body in space or three-dimensional coordinates system. This is a body, and at the center of the body, this is the y-axis, and this is x-axis, and this is z-axis. We always follow this convention. This is a right hand thumb rule. So for example, my right hand is going from x to y axis. So x to y axis, if I going from x to y axis, this thumb indicates the z axis. But if you consider x here and y here, then automatically z go in the downward direction. So we always stick to this right hand thumb rule. And if I consider a body like this, and without constraint or without attaching any this body to anything, this body can translate in the in this direction along the y-axis, and it also can translate along the x-axis freely without any hindrance or no restriction, and it also can translate along the z-axis, and the same body can rotate along the y-axis, about the y-axis, and the same body can rotate about the x-axis and also about z-axis. So can we say that the body has a 3 translation plus 3 rotations? So that means altogether it has a 6 movements. So can we say that this body has a 6 degrees of freedom? Why? Because degrees of freedom is nothing but possible movement of the body, whether it's a translation or a rotational. Here 3 translation and 3 rotational. So altogether it possesses 6 degrees of freedom. This is in the space. That means if you consider 3 degrees or 3 coordinate system, but I would like to consider the same body in a plane. So what happens if I consider it in a plane? So this is the plane x and y. So this is the body. So this is some rigid body, and this can translate along the x-axis even in this direction or in this direction without any constraint, and this can translate along the y-axis. So it has two translation motion, because here z-axis is missing, it cannot translate or go out of the plane. And if I put my finger at this point O, and if I rotate this body like this, it can also rotate along the axis that is coming out of the plane. So it got one rotation also. So when you consider the same body in the planar or plane, then planar coordinates are in a plane, then it has only two translation and one rotation. So altogether its degree of freedom is 3. And how many constraints it got imposed on this one compared to the space? So 3 constraints. So one constraint in the translation motion and 2 constraints in the rotation. So there are 3 degrees of freedom lost when you shift your coordinate system from the space to the plane. So and in most of the mechanism that we are going to deal in this chapter are planar. So we would like to derive these degrees of freedom for the planar mechanisms. So and before going into the derivation here, I would like to consider some other types of links and the possible degrees of freedom and a constraint between those links. In the first one we have a slab or a plane, and this is a sphere, and these coordinates are like this, and this is the origin at the center of the sphere. The sphere can travel along the x-axis and also along the y-axis, but it cannot travel z-axis. It can only go upward direction, but there is a restriction when it is try to go in the downward direction of the z-axis. So here it has only two translations, one is along the x-axis and another along the y-axis, and it can rotate about x-axis and then y-axis and then z-axis. So for example, if I consider this as the sphere, so it can rotate like this and it can rotate like this, okay, and it can rotate like this, and it can rotate like this also, about this one. So it has 3 rotations. It has 3 rotations. So altogether how many degrees of freedom does this sphere possess? So that is a 5 degrees of freedom, and there is only one constraint, that is a translational constraint in the direction of z-axis. And if you consider this example again, we have a sphere inside a hollow cylinder. So this we have a sphere inside a hollow cylinder, and we would like to find out how many degrees of freedom that this sphere inscribed in a this sphere can translate only along the x-axis, because this is a hollow one. It can travel here and in this direction, but it cannot travel in the y-axis and the z-axis. So it has only one translation, and this sphere again can rotate about x-axis, y-axis and z-axis because there is no constraint, or the sphere is not attached to anything. So it is like a globe, so it can rotate in any direction because that rotation is not constrained. So again we have 3 rotations. So total degrees of freedom of the sphere inside the cylinder is 4 degrees of freedom, and there are 2 constraints in a translation motion along the y and z axis. And again here in the third case we have a cylinder placed on a plane. So again the cylinder can move along the x-axis and also along the y-axis. It can go like this or like this, but it cannot go along the z-axis. In the negative z-axis direction it cannot go. So only 2 translations are possible, and rotations. So it can rotate about x. This is the cylinder. If you consider this is the cylinder and this is the x-axis, it can rotate like this, it can rotate like this, and this is x-axis and this is the y-axis, this is the y-axis. So about y-axis, can it rotate? No, it cannot rotate because this is the y-axis and it has to rotate like this, but we have a plane here, so plane is opposing that one. And this is the z-axis and this is the z-axis, and it can rotate like this about the z-axis. So it has only 2 rotations, 2 translation and 2 rotations. So total degree of freedom is 4. And here we have, in this case, this is the sphere, this is the sphere, and the sphere is locked inside a groove. For example, this is a groove, this is in 2D, but you imagine in a 3D. This is a groove, and inside we have inside the groove we have a sphere like this inside the groove, and the opening of the groove is such a way that it should be less than the diameter of the sphere. If the opening is more than diameter of the sphere, then sphere will come out. So that means this groove is holding this one, but the sphere is not attached, but it cannot come out of this one. That means it cannot translate in any of these axes. So it cannot translate in x-axis, y-axis or z-axis, but it can rotate about the x-axis, y-axis, z-axis because this sphere is not attached or not fixed to this groove. So it can rotate. It can rotate about x, y and z-axis. So here 0 translation plus 3 rotations. And if we have, in any mechanism, if we have this type of arrangement, then that can be called as a ball and socket joint. This sphere is a ball and this groove is called as a socket. So ball and socket joint. In our human body we have so many pairs of this ball and socket joint. For example, our shoulder is best example. This is the shoulder one, and this is the hand. This is the hand and this is the ball. It looks like a spear, right? And this is the groove or socket. That is our main body. This is our main body, and at the end of this one we have groove like structure, and hand is a spear like structure. So here this translation is not possible, but only 3 rotations. How these 3 rotations? For example, one axis is like this and one axis is along this one, and one axis is coming out of the plane. So how our shoulder joint works? In this example we have a cylinder inside a hollow cylinder. So this cylinder can move in this direction along the x-axis, that is, but it cannot translate in either in y-axis or z-axis. Here we have only one translation motion, and it can rotate about the x-axis also, because for example this is the x-axis and I can rotate like this one. So here we have one translation and one rotation when you have a cylinder inside a hollow cylinder. And in this case, this is the same one, but here we kept one collar here. So why we kept this color? So that it will, if you cube this color, it will prevent this translation along the x-axis. So here translation is arrested and we have only one rotation about the x-axis. So here only one translation and one rotation and 0 translations. And in this case, this is a prismatic bar, and this can translate only along the y-axis, and it cannot rotate about the y-axis because this is not a circle, so it cannot rotate this one. So here we have 0 rotation and 1 translation.